We're going to get our money's worth out of this engine assembly because we're going to use it again for this chapter, which is on motion and animation. We've talked a lot about assembling parts and using mates to create motion between parts in an assembly. Now we're going to start talking about how to animate that and record a movie. The Motion Manager is the piece of software that you use within SOLIDWORKS to record movies and to drive this animated motion. Motion Manager is represented by this row at the bottom of the SOLIDWORKS interface. If you have the Model and Animation tab showing, then you have the Motion Manager. If you don't have those showing, you can go to the toolbar, right-click in it, and make sure that Motion Manager is selected. I'm going to click on the Animation tab and just accept this dialog box. If you already have an animation, you could just right-click on the tab and say Create New Motion Study. That will create a new motion study for you. The way the SOLIDWORKS Motion Manager is set up is you will establish the position of your parts and assembly and also the view orientation at various times. And then you can also assign various motion drivers like a motor, spring, contact, or gravity between your parts. We're going to use three different things here. First, we're going to change the orientation of the model so that it rotates during the first part of the movie. And then we're going to move a couple of parts just by repositioning them. And we're also going to drive the engine using a motor. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is right-click and turn off the Disable View Key Creation. Then I'm going to move my time bar out to about 5 seconds and rotate the model to this position. So now let's replay that from the start. Somehow SOLIDWORKS got the position incorrect. So let's correct that by moving this motor back into the middle of the screen, right-click, and say Replace Key. We'll click on Calculate and see if it gets it right this time. Very good. I'm going to move this back to 0 and scroll down. I'm going to unsuppress these two components. I'm going to put these cloud parts back into the assembly here. And if this dialog box pops up, just click Yes. Let's play this again from the start just to make sure everything's still good. This swings around the way we want it to. Now let's reposition the part at about 2 seconds. Scroll this all the way to the bottom. And we see we've got our two cloud parts here. What I want to do is to copy, and this is just Control-Drag, the position of one of these so that we make sure that it's got the same position at 2 seconds. And then at 5 seconds, take this component and just move it backwards. So let's see what happens now if we recompute. SOLIDWORKS should reposition the engine, start rotating, then at 2 seconds, the cloud starts flying off. We went out to 7 seconds rather than to 5. Let's just delete this extra point. From this point, we want to zoom in so the camera view stops changing at 5 seconds. Let's move this out. Make sure everything's lined up at 5 seconds. Got something out of place down here. Between 5 seconds and 7 seconds, let's change the point of view of the assembly again. We're going to rotate this up like this. And at this point, we want the cover to go transparent. I'll right-click on this and change transparency. Now notice that what SOLIDWORKS is trying to do is to change that transparency from the beginning. So we don't want that. We'll take this key point and drag it out to about the 5-second mark. This means it will only change over the last 2 seconds. And let's recalculate, rotate, cloud flies out. Okay, again, SOLIDWORKS has got the point of view wrong. So let's bring it back to this point and bring this assembly back into view so we can see everything properly. Okay, now at this point, I should probably go ahead and relock the view key creation so we don't accidentally make any other changes. And let's see why we're pushed out here. Again, we'll just go ahead and delete this. So everything goes up to about 7 seconds. Let's recalculate to make sure everything's good. Okay, we forgot to replace the key. So we'll reposition this, right-click, and replace key. That's why we recalculate to check it. And let's go with that again. Now you notice the motion here is very choppy. But when we record it, we'll record the frame rate much higher. And now we want to apply the motor. So what I'm going to do is click on the motor. It's a rotary motor. Component is this part. SOLIDWORKS is going to show me the direction it's rotating. I'll change it the other direction. You can change the motion to constant speed, distance, or an oscillating segments, data points, expression, load a function from file, or so on. So I'll just say constant speed. I'll click OK to accept that. Now the rotary motor shows up and it's going to be running the entire time, which is good. Let's recalculate this again from the beginning. Okay, so the motor is spinning around, the cloud is flying. It should now zoom, and it does that incorrectly again. We want a period of time where we just see the motor running. So I'm going to grab this last control point and pull it out to 10 seconds. With this, the motor should stand still and the internal parts should do their thing. Now let's save this out as a movie. I'll click on the diskette, which is a very quaint symbol for saving something. And we'll save this to a special folder. Let's put it on my desktop as an AVI file. You can also save it as a series of bitmaps or targas. In this case, I'm just going to use the SOLIDWORKS screen, but you could also use PhotoView 360. You can reset the aspect ratio if you want to do that, and change the number of frames per second. I'll change it to 15. Let's save that out. The compressor, in this case, I'm going to set it to full frames, uncompressed. Now SOLIDWORKS is going through the animation again in greater detail, and everything is happening as we expect it to. In fact, if you look closely, you can even see the pistons going up and down and the valve train working correctly. Okay, and in this section of the movie, we'll be able to see all the components moving. And then at 10 seconds, it should all be over. Okay, now let's take a look for that file. It went to my desktop. And here's the file on my desktop. I'll just right-click this and play it with Media Player. And here we go. The engine turns around, the cloud pushes away, engine repositions, and we can see the cylinders banging away. So that's how you create animations in SOLIDWORKS.